Today's video is about the notion of patriotism within a Lithuanian context. The idea for this topic stemmed from a conversation with a fellow foreigner who said that he and his partner had found themselves in a few negative experiences with Lithuanians that he labeled as being overly patriotic. Without knowing too much about the circumstances behind those negative interactions, I asked my Lithuanian wife about over-patriotic Lithuanians. Well, she wasn't surprised and explained that Lithuanians are quick to defend their country and nationality. She went on to say that it's quite alright for Lithuanians to criticize their own country and government and culture, but if a foreigner does it, then offense is usually taken. She equated it to a family relationship. You might know all the annoyances of your brother or sister, but the moment an outsider points out those same annoyances, you might come to the defense of your own family, even if what was said is true. I kind of understand this, I don't think everyone is like this, but I can understand the position. Whether or not you would label this kind of attitude as patriotism is up to you. But all of this discussion so far has gotten me quite curious about Lithuanians and their identity. And so I did a little bit of research. But before I move forward, I want to make it clear that I'm mostly citing from one academic source, then offering my insights and opinions, and then I'm asking you to comment and respond if you notice anything that needs clarification or further detail or information. My own relationship to Lithuania is still very new, and so I'll be relying on the small army of Lithuanian viewers to add some detail to this complicated topic. So let's first start with the history of the Lithuanian identity. It's, well, complicated, but according to Lowell W. Barrington, author of the book After Independence, Lithuania's history is, quote, marked by an early period of expansionist glory, gradual decline, eventual cultural subjugation, and a prolonged struggle to develop and reassert a national identity. So the beginning of the Lithuanian identity goes back a couple thousand years, when Balts, or the Baltic peoples, first settled around the land that is now modern-day Lithuania, Latvia, and the surrounding territories. The first written record of the name Lithuania, or more accurately, Lietuvė, dates back to the year 1009. Lithuanians conquered neighboring lands and established the Grand Duchy of Lithuania in the 13th century to protect themselves and their identity from the Teutonic and Livonian knights. Barrington begins by talking about how the Grand Duchy of Lithuania would eventually become part of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, saying, by 1698, Polish culture had become so dominant that Polish was declared as the official state language for the entire Commonwealth. Lithuanian had been largely relegated to the status of a language spoken by the illiterate peasant population of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth's eastern regions. Lithuanian identity would be reawakened after the decline of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. This sense of Lithuanian nationalism and identity would lead to the 1863 insurrection against the ruling Russian Empire with a goal of an independent Lithuanian state. One of the Russian Empire's responses to this insurrection would be the banning of the Latin alphabet. Apparently, this move would only solidify the Lithuanian identity and the Lithuanian resolve to be independent. The author notes that parents would even educate their children in the Lithuanian language, despite serious punishments for doing so. So, in the interest of keeping this video under 20 minutes long, I'm going to summarize the next few decades by telling you that an independent Lithuanian state was established in 1918 with the collapse of the Russian Empire. Between World War I and II, Poland would take Vilnius away from Lithuania, but this cherished capital city would be regained, at the cost of becoming occupied by the Soviet Union. Under the control of the Soviet Union, the Lithuanian language would be largely replaced by Russian. Schools would teach Russian, and it would become the main language of business and government. Fast forward a few decades until the 90s, and Lithuania would once again regain its independence from the Soviet Union. And it's at this point where the modern-day journey of Lithuanian identity and patriotism begins, at least in my opinion. Barrington puts it like this: much of the activity leading up to the restoration of Lithuanian independence revolved around the membership question, what is the Lithuanian nation? The self-portrait that emerged was that of a people who had lived in a region traversed by many peoples. Hence, Lithuanians had developed a high level of tolerance of others. However, not all of their neighbors had done likewise, imposing their culture and language on the Lithuanians. As a consequence, the Lithuanian nation was also depicted as a heroic people who had suffered for centuries from efforts made by first the Poles and then the Russians to dominate and forcibly assimilate them. So this is the author's description of Lithuania's self-portrait, and not his own opinion of Lithuanian identity. In fact, he later adds that Lithuania's involvement in the Holocaust goes against this idea of having a high tolerance of others. But over the past 30 years, it would seem that Lithuania has been working hard to rid itself of Soviet and Russian influence while also welcoming closer relations with the West. Joining the NATO military alliance, as well as the European Union, are good examples of this, all of which is quite clearly part of the larger strategy to cut off ties with Russia. While older generations of Lithuanians speak Russian as a second language, younger Lithuanians are more likely to speak English as their second language. Younger Lithuanians are also more likely to emigrate to Western European countries, or even to the Americas, with far fewer heading east to Russia. With foreign influence coming historically from the East, and these days from the West, I can see the important role that an institution like the VLKK, Lithuania's Language Commission, would have when it comes to preserving the Lithuanian language and, by association, Lithuanian culture. In fact, in his book, Barrington concludes that language is at the core of Lithuanian identity. After learning more about the country's history of foreign occupation and either active or passive de-Lithuanianization, it becomes clear that government institutions and cultural groups are working hard to preserve what they define as Lithuanian, because it's clearly a culture and identity that has been somewhat at risk over the past few centuries. Well, since coming to live here, and especially since starting this YouTube channel, I've noticed a mix of attitudes about Lithuania from Lithuanians. Some still have this feeling of inferiority when compared to other developed nations around the world. They disparage Lithuania, they feel like it's not good enough, and they talk about how they want to go somewhere else. But others, dare I say most people, are actually proud of their country. And they're typically the ones who are so excited about this YouTube channel discussing some of the fantastic things Lithuanians and Lithuanian companies have achieved. A lot of Lithuanians are shocked when I say I like it here more than Canada. Personally, I think there's a myth that Canada is the promised land and an ideal place to relocate to. I guess from my own perspective, the country is great, but has its own share of societal issues. And I think Lithuania, as a small European nation, has a lot to offer, even if energy prices are sky high at the moment. I would agree with the author of the book when he says that Lithuanians are outwardly quite tolerant. Interestingly though, he adds that there is an anti-foreigner sentiment that goes beyond nationalism, saying that there is a form of xenophobia that feels like all foreigners have little to contribute to Lithuania. Indeed, there is a pervasive belief that the Lithuanian nation is so unique that it defies understanding by outsiders. Well, speaking for myself, I don't know if I fully understand the Lithuanian nation, but I'm certainly trying. And as for the future of the Lithuanian identity, I guess it's not really for me to decide. But if I were to offer my perspective, I do see Lithuanians both embracing multiculturalism and diversity, while also cherishing their language as well as their cultural heritage and traditions. On one hand, I see young Lithuanians signing up for Korean language lessons and getting into K-pop, and on the other side, I see Lithuanians, or children of Lithuanian immigrants, living overseas and looking to channels like this as a way to reconnect with their roots. It's an interesting mix, and I hope these sorts of things will open up Lithuania to the world, while still preserving Lithuanian culture and language. As for me, I'll continue making videos to learn about this great country, while setting a 2023 target to begin taking Lithuanian language lessons. So if you're Lithuanian, how patriotic or nationalistic do you consider yourself to be? And what do you think might be the average sentiment about Lithuania and foreigners in Lithuania? And for all of you non-Lithuanians watching, do you feel like Lithuania is a welcoming country? I would love to hear what you have to say, so please leave a comment down below. Thank you so much to Lithuanian Guy 1 for helping me with this video, and thank you to Tom Captors for letting me use his beautiful videos. And I thank all of you for watching, and I'll see you next time.